Hey, welcome
How's it
back
going?
to episode 3 of the podcast, which may or may not be a month late, but that's okay, that's fine.
We are just
Schedules,
happy to be able to talk to you guys again about what we love talking about.
yeah, we're happy to be back. It's gonna be a shorter today, but that's okay because we're still gonna cover lots of good information. One thing I want to say before, actually, do you have something you want to say?
I was just gonna say, the situation in Palestine. Even though there's less coverage about it, there's still lots of things going on, and we are just here to bring you, the most factual information that we possibly can. And we just
Mm-hmm.
want everyone to keep in mind that, even though there's less coverage, there's still lots of things going on. So yeah,
Yeah. One thing I want to say is I don't want to say last week, last episode we said that we would be doing Black Lives Matter this episode. That will be next episode, I promise. That will be next episode. This
yeah,
episode, we're going to do our like a sort of chapter recap, if that makes sense. I
hmm
shouldn't say it that way. A recap of Palestine because um, now it
it's
just
more
seems
of
like
a
a better
pressing
time.
issue.
Yeah.
It's more of a pressing issue.
Yeah.
Even though the
Um,
Black Lives Matter thing has been, it's been going on even up until now. Things are still going on.
yeah,
That's something that we can, review and cover in like a later episode. Yeah.
true. All right, so Palestine, we talked about it 2 months ago, or like a month and a half ago, a month ago, and now we're talking about it again today.
hmm
Um, a lot has happened since our last episode, hasn't it? I
Yeah.
believe.
I mean, I would say the major things that are happening are other nations are giving their outlooks on it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the US.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's becoming more and more of a global issue, and it's having more global impacts. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um, I completely forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, that's right. Um, so last month when we did cover this,
hmm
literally the day after, I think the Prime Minister of Israel stepped down, which is what,
Oh yeah.
and like a bunch of people in the government resigned and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it was a major
that's the
change.
thing that happened. I'm sure a lot of people already heard about that, but we're
hmm
not really gonna be talking about that because, so are you familiar with the whole concept of how if things aren't necessarily dealt with, they'll sort of repeat themselves?
Yeah, I mean, history repeats itself, especially when you let like a bad system,
Yeah.
perpetuate and you perpetuate and continue. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely
So
familiar.
remember in our first episode when we talked about the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, where people were
Yep,
literally being forced out of their homes?
yep.
Um, in a way, we're sort of back to that because I'm gonna explain it. So you know that have I'm sure a lot of people, and I know you have, right? You've seen
Yeah,
that you seen that like ring circle thing where it's like someone messes up, internet gets angry, fake
it's like a
apology.
cycle, right?
Yeah, it's the
Yep,
it's the circle of a cycle,
yep.
psychopath, right?
hmm
I was gonna draw one up. I didn't have enough time, but I was gonna draw one up for what's happening in Palestine because let me
Yeah,
explain it. So 2 months ago, Israel's going to evict the people of Sheikh Jarrah, and they end up doing
yep,
that. By the way, they did that.
yep. In May,
Then
yeah.
the internet got angry and said, "Hey, stop doing that." And so then people are talking about it, it's trending, etc. Israel stops
hmm
doing that until the trends eventually go away,
Yeah,
right? After a month or two, when they
yeah.
go away, they start the cycle again.
It's a horrible, and that's the sad reality is, and we actually it also goes hand in hand with what we talked about of how much of an impact the internet and social media has,
Yeah, it
right?
does.
Exactly. When these things and these protests are going on, they enable these protests, they encourage these protests. It honestly has a huge impact, and we did see it almost like it almost impacted and caused a ceasefire to occur,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I did.
But
Well,
then once, yeah,
there is a ceasefire, but I don't think anyone's actually like adhering to that because
yeah,
I don't have the numbers with me
it's
right now.
very
But
well. I mean, Israel, as we know, has not been very known to adhere to anything they have said in the past
no,
70 years.
yeah,
So
that
nothing
yeah,
new. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I want to emphasize that last part of that like circle of unfortunate events that we talked about because
hmm
that last part, the part where it repeats itself, is starting again. Because I'm not sure if you've heard of the neighborhood of Silwan in East Jerusalem, but 100 homes are going to be demolished, and over 1,500 Palestinians are going to be evicted from their homes and forced to
Yeah.
demolish them or pay for the fines of demolishing them.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah. That's a
sounds
new.
awfully
Yeah.
familiar to 2 months ago.
it's
doesn't it?
it's the new Sheikh Jarrah, and
It
it's
is.
in a very sad way.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, one good thing that has been happening is that it's been getting more coverage.
Yeah,
It's
it
been
has.
been talked about again. I felt
Hmm.
like in these past couple weeks we saw a very major like drop off of like the palace like talk about Palestine on social media, and then
Hmm.
this did it rose up again, and we saw more talking about it. But
Hmm.
it's the sad reality is that it might just be another cycle. We might just talk about it again, and then
Yeah.
the trend stops.
Hmm. Oh, and by the way, you know that ceasefire quote. I'm doing quotations.
Mm-hmm.
Ceasefire
Yep.
that
Yeah.
is supposed to be in place. In reality, it's not really doing anything because people are still being killed. People are still being injured.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and war crimes are still happening. People are still being tortured. By the way, that's illegal. By the way, not that anyone's
Yeah.
enforcing international laws,
Yeah.
but that's illegal. You can't capture people and torture people. Which there are videos of
Yeah.
that happening. Did you see that
It's so
video
sad.
of the IDF literally shooting? They're trying to shoot children who are running away.
Yeah.
I'll
Yep.
leave a
I've
link to
seen.
all this in the description. It'll be
It
like
makes me
150
sick.
links.
It makes me sick to my stomach that these rules are in place, but regardless, they will still go against them. And I would say the main thing we can take away from this is that these rules and these things that they put out in the news, like a ceasefire, right? We have
Hmm.
we have started a ceasefire with Palestine. That's really just to appease the
The,
the
the people
overseas
on
people
social
that are
media and stuff.
exactly the
Yeah,
people that are protesting. It's really just like a pacifier. It's like saying, "Hey,
yeah.
we stopped. We are neutral now." But what they're going to continue to do is they're going to continue to evict people. They're going to continue to do settler colonialism, and they're going to get away
Yeah.
with it because most of it is going to be hidden.
Yeah. Which is
That's
which
the
is a
sad truth. Yeah.
really awful thing. Like if you think about like the whole idea of saying you're doing something but then your actions don't reflect what you said you would
Hmm.
do, but then your people aren't going to talk to you about
Especially
it
when they're not
because
when
they
you're
don't
not held
know.
accountable. When you're
Yeah.
not held accountable as a whole state.
Yeah.
No one's holding them accountable.
Which
When
be,
yeah,
yeah, the whole idea of the United Nations and like the way they're enforcing international laws a bit well, they aren't. I take that back. They
it's
aren't in
iffy.
any
It's
way.
iffy.
Yeah.
It's very clear how and who the rules benefit in the
Oh yeah,
United
though
Nations, right?
there's definitely like people or the rules have definitely been I'm not saying written in a way, but they're definitely
Hmm.
enforced in a way that is beneficial to I don't know who has the most power, I guess.
These it's like a new colonial power with
Yeah,
Israel. It's literally like modern day colonialism, and we it's you would be it's so ironic because the U.S. They started as colonies as well. You
yeah,
know, it's they're just trying to encourage the roots of their own country, and they're trying to enforce that and encourage it over in the Middle East. It gives them more power.
it's so unfortunate, honestly, and I
Hmm.
feel like I know we talked about this last episode, but I feel like people have started to become it's desensitized to all of this. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
I feel
I
like
I feel like we're victims of that too,
Oh,
honestly.
I think everyone in some capacity, everyone, especially who lives like in the United States, just for example,
Yeah,
in some capacity, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, have
yeah,
become desensitized to certain things. Like 1,500 people are being evicted from their homes, their
yep,
children literally dying.
yeah.
But
I
people
mean,
people just sort of say, yeah, it's just another thing on the news.
it's the sad thing is that when in a country where school shootings were happening every week or more
Yeah.
often, in a country where racism is being tolerated and almost like condoned by the one of our previous presidents,
Yeah.
in a country like that, we're gonna wake up every day, and we're gonna kind of get used to it, and that's the sad thing.
That is
And
unfortunate.
and then when you see things overseas like this happening, it almost seems foreign to the point
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like it's not my problem anymore. And even if it was, it's like how much more, how much more can we keep fighting, like
Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes people seem to care less about things because they feel like they don't have any ability to help the situation. Like even if
direct
they
control, right?
genuinely do feel bad for someone they see on TV who just
Hmm.
lost their home
Yeah.
illegally, they feel that they can't help in any way. Because like think about it, you're watching the news and you're sitting in your home thinking,
Yeah.
what can I do to help? I can't really do anything. I can't go and help people. I don't have any
Yeah,
power to do something. But that's the unfortunate thing, that people don't realize just how much power as an individual they have to help a situation.
I would say that's again where the power of protest comes in,
Yeah.
because it does have a lot of power. And
Mm-hmm.
even though when the protests happened, Israel continued to do bad things. It
Mm-hmm.
did put a dent, and it did put a little halt
Mm-hmm.
to their plans.
No, it did. And
You know,
especially like social media and stuff like that, like the way that
hmm
people just simply spreading the word about something has
hmm
more of an effect than any politician probably could,
definitely,
or at least in a
definitely,
different way.
in a different way, I would say,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say politicians definitely hold a lot of power with their words and their decisions, but we as the people, in masses,
Yeah, that's true. I
we
mean,
can
who
make
has the
huge
real power
differences.
there
Yeah,
between the
exactly.
people and politicians? At the end of the day, politicians are just people elected by the
They're
people.
propped up. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're propped up by the
they're
people.
people elected by the people to
Yep.
represent the people. So in but if they aren't necessarily representing the people, then
We
there's
know.
an issue.
I think I know who you were trying to reference there.
Really?
Yeah, our former president. No,
Oh,
but yeah.
really?
hmm But exactly, like I completely agree. Like we see these trends take over, like on Twitter and stuff, and then we
Mm-hmm.
see other events happen, such as a ceasefire, and
Mm-hmm.
there's some, like, I saw this one pair of siblings.
Mm-hmm.
They were arrested, but then social media started spreading so much news about them that it got them to get was not bailed, but they were freed and they were released because
Yeah.
they were like news reporters. That's the power
Okay.
of social media. This is what we touched on last
No, I mean,
episode,
it
right?
really is like if everyone in the world, or like 50,000 people, hypothetically, just as a random number, are
hmm
talking about something on social media, like
hmm
that's gonna like exponentially grow more and more and more until
Definitely.
eventually it's like everyone until eventually it's gonna reach the actual source of like what is happening. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah,
what you were
because there
talking about?
are,
Yeah.
yeah, there's people like that news will spread to all parts of the world almost, right? It's
Yeah.
going to reach parts of the whole, like all over the world. And
Hmm.
because of that, then there's going to be other people who do have connections to that. They will expose more information. They will give more information. That type of stuff happens. It's just that when there's another factor in this too, when
Hmm.
Israel and the US as well, they have been trying to what is it, censor, I guess you could say,
Censor. There it is.
certain
Yeah.
certain
Censor.
videos and words that are being spread about Palestine on social media, and that has a huge impact on these trends that are trying to grow and try to spread more news.
I think that really points out who is in the right and who is in the wrong.
Definitely,
If you believe that you were truly doing the right thing, you wouldn't be trying to censor and delete what is
exactly,
wrong.
exactly, right. Why,
Like
what
think
would you,
about it.
if you were in the right, what would you be trying to stop? What
You're
would you
trying
try?
to
What
push the truth.
information?
You wouldn't be trying to
Yeah,
censor what's false.
you would be so steadfast in your belief that you wouldn't need to stop any like
Yeah,
wrong
because
information, because there is no wrong
if
information.
something's truly false, like if something that's opposed to your own ideas is false,
hmm
then it's gonna disprove itself. It's gonna eventually
exactly.
find something that counteracts it.
People would do their job and they would tear it apart.
Yeah,
But when it's the opposite, when people are tearing a nation's like plans apart,
yeah,
like the social media does to Israel, and they have to censor that.
yeah.
That's the fact that people can't see through that and can't see how Israel is the villain and the oppressor in this is
Hmm.
very, very embarrassing and very
Gosh,
sad
and
and disappointing.
I really hate when like politicians and stuff they say like this is like a everyone is at fault. It's like no, it's just not. There's
Exactly.
war crimes going on, and I hate that people don't use like the words that they're there to define what's happening.
Yep.
It's like yeah, torturing children, that's a war crime.
Yeah.
But people don't want
The
to like actually say that. I don't know what they're afraid of.
it's really sad. I mean, and then another thing is when they call it a religious war, like, please educate yourself, or please, even if you are educated, don't just try to justify it by calling it a religious war. It
No,
has nothing to do with
no,
religion, right?
in very few ways is it actually a religious war.
It's
It's
very
a
in very
land
few ways.
dispute.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
all right, I'm gonna do a slight turn back to the neighborhood of Silwan. That
hmm
wasn't meant to be a joke. I didn't mean to say turn and then into the neighborhood of Silwan. What I mean to say is, all right. Anyway, the neighborhood
Yes,
of
I know. We
Silwan
know
in
what you
East
mean.
Jerusalem in Palestine,
hmm
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that neighborhood, out of, as far as I'm aware, there were 100 homes that had occupied 1,500 people, which is already bad. If there are 100 homes
Mm-hmm.
and there are 1,500 people, like
That is so
1,500
scary.
people crowded into those homes,
Yeah.
that's already bad. Like, you need more
It just
space.
shows. I mean, just throwing a fact out here. I think this is not. I think it's in the Gaza Strip. I think
Hmm.
is one of the most densely populated areas in the whole entire world.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know. Yeah. Just to put it in perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
um,
sad. They just pushed the Israelis pushed the Palestinians into almost like a corner of the
yeah.
map.
No, I mean, it is a corner in many ways. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
because it is literally, I don't want to say a corner, but it's like, if you have nowhere to go, you are isolated from everything else. It
It
is,
it it like that's what happened. That's what causes the refugees to
yeah.
they try to flee and stuff. But yeah, as we were saying.
So in the neighborhood, Silwan, out of 100 homes with 1,500 people in it, they
Mm-hmm.
were 100 homes were ordered to be demolished. Like, the IDF came and said, "Hey, you have to
Mm-hmm.
demolish your home within the next
Wow.
30 days, or
Yeah,
pay the fines of us having to demolish it."
it's literal blackmail right there.
Well, no, yeah,
It's
it is.
sorry,
In many
not
ways, it
sorry, not
is.
not blackmail. It's literally it's completely
It's
injustice,
it's
and
theft. It's
it's theft, right? Yeah, it's absolutely a crime,
it's
and
theft. You're
there
forcing people to leave their homes and, like,
there's no
destroy them.
justification for it.
No, there's no
There's
justification.
no beneficial choice. There's no win for the Palestinians, and it's all a win-win for the settler
Yeah. Do you
colonialists.
want to know the worst part about all of this? Well, I'm not
Yeah,
saying the worst part, but the stupidest part. The
yeah,
stupidest. The worst part of this, or
yeah,
whatever
yes,
part, is that
yeah.
these homes are being destroyed and 1,500 people are being evicted to make room for a theme park.
I heard about this. Yeah. Oh man, I heard about that. So disappointing, like what this world has come to, right?
I it,
It's
I don't even know what to say to that.
it's absolutely
Like, these
just
people are being having to they're being forced to
yeah.
destroy their homes in order to make way for a theme park.
It's absolutely disgusting. That's what it is. I mean,
Imagine if Disneyland, or like Disney, came to your door and knocked in and said, "Hey, the government gave us a deed for your house and 50 miles around it. Destroy your
mhm.
house, or else."
How my question is, how do the Israel supporters continue to justify this? How do they say, "Hey, we are going to the people that we already forced into these small neighborhoods, we are going to take away more of their land to build not necessarily unnecessary, but just amenities that are not as important and valuable as somebody's home, right?"
I would not say that a theme park is necessary in any
It is not
capacity.
necessary.
At least
It's
compared
yeah.
to, more housing for the 1,500 people crammed into 100 homes.
The victims, the victims.
Yeah.
There's really no justification in that
Yeah.
situation.
And I find it so interesting that people don't want to acknowledge that. Like, they don't
Yeah.
want to acknowledge that, yeah, 100 houses had to be destroyed by the people
Hmm.
who occupy them. Then they were forced to do that in order to make way
Exactly.
for an Israeli theme park.
Yeah. Imagine they tell you got to destroy your own house, or we're gonna like threaten you, force you out of
Yeah.
there. It's absolutely sad and heartbreaking. Yeah.
That's just crazy. That's actually a thing. I feel like people, like, see that on the news and stuff, but they don't really
Hmm.
want to, like, believe it. Like, people who are on Israel's side and stuff, they don't want
Yeah.
to believe that. They see it, but then they don't, like,
Are you saying
acknowledge
the
it in
ones that are
some
the
way.
ones that try to justify Israel's plans?
Yeah, yeah.
Those people. Yeah.
Like, they're the people who try to justify every action, but then I feel like a majority of people are just the people who, they only bring up the stuff that supports their point of
Yeah.
view directly, and then the
Hmm.
stuff that they know is happening, they just, like, look away from it. They're like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know."
There are definitely people in every type of argument that occurs
Yeah,
that happens. There's people like that.
yeah,
And in this situation, it's the Zionists, right?
yeah, it is. I know we talked
Yeah.
about Zionism last time, and
Hmm.
I'm actually not going to talk about that again because I feel like last week we did a pretty good job of
We covered it.
summarizing
Yeah.
Zionism, and I don't think
Yeah.
I could do that again because I think I deleted the articles I had saved.
We went into a pretty good history
Yeah,
and
we had a good
overview of
history lesson. Yeah,
yeah. So if you guys would like to
if you
hear
want
about
to,
that, definitely
yeah, you
check
can
out
go
the
back to our
previous
last
episode.
episode.
It gives you more
Yeah.
context about this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So yeah, houses getting destroyed, people being evicted to make way
Mm-hmm.
for a theme park.
An unnecessary theme park. Yeah.
Yeah, which that is a that is. I'm not gonna say exactly what. Well, you know why don't I? It is a war crime, isn't it, to force people out of their homes?
Most definitely, it
Like
is. Yeah.
maybe it's not necessarily a war crime, but it is against international law. Another
It
country
is.
can't.
Yeah.
Imagine if Canada came to the border of like someone in the United States and said, "Your
Mm-hmm.
house is now Canadian property.
Yeah,
Destroy
let's
it."
also take into account that they declared a ceasefire. So they're not actually
Yeah,
the fact that not only are they going against that and still attacking Palestinians and their land, they're also attacking the innocent people and their
hmm
neighborhoods, you know?
which,
That's
if we
the
really think
really
about
sad
it,
thing.
what does that ceasefire actually do? If we really think about it,
Mm-hmm.
what is it actually doing besides just, like you said, being a pacifier for people who are not going to educate themselves on what's actually happening?
Yeah.
What is it? What is that ceasefire actually doing? If people are still being killed, people are still being shot at, if things that are supposed to not be happening are still happening, what is it actually doing?
It's a piece of justification for the Zionists to continue their actions. That's what I'm seeing from
Yeah,
this, because if they just continued to do what they're doing, keep going, there would be some people that say, even the U.S. at some point, they're going to be like, hey, you are breaking international law. Like, we do support you, but you are breaking international law.
yeah.
This is basically acting as that justification. It's saying, hey, we're basically on the brink of breaking national law, but hey, international law, but hey, here's a ceasefire, so we're saved.
But the
Basically,
worst
that's what
part
I'm
about
saying.
that is that that's completely hollow. That ceasefire, it's completely
It
hollow. There's
is,
no actual action difference that has
but
happened, really.
one thing we have learned about politicians is a lot of things they say are hollow, and it's more about what they say versus how they actually keep that promise. It's more
No,
about
I would
what they
say
say,
most
you know.
politicians don't fulfill
Mm-hmm.
what they say or want to do.
Exactly. It's not about fulfilling. It's about actually declaring something. And that's the sad truth about a lot of wars. And sorry, not a lot of wars, a lot of diplomacy these days.
It's about like convincing people that what I told you will happen and what you want it to happen is happening, but in reality the
Mm-hmm.
opposite is happening. That is crazy though. Like the idea that literally what the internet wanted to happen was peace, and then they give
Mm-hmm.
you a pacifier, a ceasefire, and the internet is happy, but what was happening before is still happening. Nothing has
Yeah.
changed. If
I
anything,
don't
it's
know.
gotten worse. It went from 12
Mm-hmm.
houses to 100 houses. It's
Yeah. I
multiplied by nearly 10.
yeah. I don't know necessarily if the internet's happy. Even the people that have forgotten, it's less about like, hey, we're just fine with what's going on. It's more about, they're just like, we give up,
Yeah.
we don't know what to do. And this has happened with a lot of things, Black
Mm-hmm.
Lives Matter, that was a more of a success, but there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
issues. We've seen this with so many movements,
Mm-hmm.
it takes such a revolution and such
It
a
takes a
compelling
massive
and
effort from lots of
it takes
people.
so much effort and force for it to actually be successful. The biggest challenge is that it's overseas, and we are in the country that is the biggest ally of Israel.
Yeah,
What do you
it
do in
is.
that situation? Yeah,
I Oh, one thing I want to talk about really quick before we end. We're
yeah,
getting close to the end of our relatively short episode. One
yeah.
thing I want to talk about. So, you know what I hate more than anything? Well, not more than anything, but a lot. What I really dislike.
Yeah.
There are people on social media who I've sort of like found are
Hmm.
only they're sort of like trend followers. You know what I mean? They say things
Yeah.
simply because the internet is talking about it, whether they're actually educated on the topic or not, and whether they actually care about what's happening or not. That's
Hmm.
irrelevant. All that matters is them following the trend just so they can benefit from themselves. So
Yep.
like I don't think
Do you have
this
any
time there
specific
were
examples?
I do not have any specific examples, but I know there were a few, like, mostly like kind of semi famous people, right?
Yeah.
Who only
was thinking,
wanted to like follow the
yeah,
trend, like only want to say free Palestine just because other people are saying it, and because
yeah,
some people see that and they think, oh, this person has good ideas, I'll follow them or something like that.
yeah,
In reality, but in reality, they just say that just for that, and they have no actual care about the topic.
yeah. Someone that came to mind,
Mm-hmm.
just because I've seen her do this with different movements and different
Mm-hmm.
trends that occur, is Rihanna.
Okay,
And oftentimes she's not always on the best side of it.
fair
And
enough.
it's more of what's gonna gain her more popularity, or what's gonna put her in the right image of her fans. And that's just what I've noticed. I mean, there's plenty of people out there.
There are, and that's such
Yeah.
an awful thing. Like, think about that.
Hmm.
Imagine using literal human rights abuses and people dying and people having be forcefully being evicted from their homes and ethnic
Yeah.
cleansing. Imagine using that simply to boost your own social media standpoint or stance.
Remember
That
how we were talking about the impact of social media? It's not just the impact, it's how hungry people are
yeah,
for social media too. That's
yeah.
another whole aspect.
There's definitely pluses and minuses to social media. That being
Yeah.
what we just talked about, being on kind of the more negative side of it.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
I'm not gonna say people like that necessarily detract from the movement, because it's what they're doing is different from people who are openly like on social media saying how everyone's being awful. Like they're people who are on the opposite side versus
Yeah.
people who are actually genuine supporters of the movement.
Yeah, they're not as
They're not
detrimental and
necessarily,
as
yeah.
much of the enemy.
They're not
They're not even the enemy.
they're
They're
not
just
detrimental, but I know they're what they're doing is definitely it's definitely wrong.
it's it's yeah, in a different way, I guess
Yeah,
you could
it's
say
it's
it's
wrong in a
wrong.
different way. It's not going to
Hmm.
necessarily be detrimental, like you said, to
Yeah,
the movement, but it's not. It's still a bad thing. Like it's if you really
it
think about that,
is.
it's just so cruel to like
It is.
imagine
It's
seeing that,
selfish too.
and like imagine seeing that on the news, like people just that like that happening to people, and then the
Hmm.
only thing you get from that is your mind going straight to how can I use this for
To
my own
benefit.
personal benefit.
Exactly.
Like that
That's what I'm
is
saying. It's selfish, right?
yeah.
It's very selfish. We see
We
that same
are
trend with a lot of things.
that yeah.
Yeah.
So we are starting to run out of time. I know this is a shorter episode, but
Hmm.
things are happening soon. We are going to be more consistent with uploads. That will
Yes, for
happen.
sure. Definitely.
Watch it next month. Next month. Watch our next episode be next month. No, it will be
Yeah,
sooner. It will be sooner.
and we will definitely try to bring you guys. We love and we love talking about Palestine.
Yeah.
We realize how important it is to spread the information about such a pressing topic.
Yeah.
We also are going to introduce more topics.
We will.
It's soon to come. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have like a huge list of topics we want to talk about. I want to talk about COVID. I want to talk about
Hmm.
BLM. I want to talk about just so much stuff.
Yeah.
Gun laws,
Yeah.
school, and like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about all of it eventually.
Yeah. If you guys have reached to this point, the end point of the video, definitely feel free to like let us know or comment what
Yeah.
you guys want to listen to us talk about.
Yeah. Also, thank you if you're here and listening, to all two of you who are listening. Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it
No,
though.
we really do. I was so surprised, like the first time I went to the channel analytics and saw like people, like there were a few people who actually like listened all the way through and like got to the very end. So
It's
thank
amazing.
you to those people.
It's definitely pretty it gives us hope and
Yeah.
more inspiration to want to continue to make these podcasts. So yeah.
And if I'm being honest, I feel like if one person who listened to any of our episodes, like if at least one person learned one new thing that they didn't know before, I feel like that's a
I
win
feel like we would
enough.
be accomplishing our goal
Yeah.
in that sense. So
If
yeah.
someone learned something and someone found a new like got new knowledge because of the information that
They
we
felt enlightened, but because of our, discussion.
yeah,
Yeah.
if that happened, then that's a win. That's our objective.
I definitely agree. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for
We
listening
will catch you
to
on the next episode.
the update.